Welcome to Video Head Cleaner, and happy Pride Month as we record this. For this episode, we have for you our very first Best Picture winner, our first movie with an all-black cast, and our first LGBT film we're covering. That's right, it's Moonlight. What do you have to say about this film, Tommy, to sort of kick us off here? I know you're really excited about this one.
It's such a beautiful film, and this is also definitely the most dialogue light film that we've reviewed. I mean, there are definitely some important moments of dialogue, but so much of this film it's a story told with tone and mood and an image. It has this real dreamlike quality a lot of times as the main character, Sharon, moves through life, sometimes kind of swept through life, and it's.
Well, it's very interesting because it is A24's first actual thing that they fully sort of financed and produced, and we'll get into a little bit more of the nuance of that later. They were a distribution company a year earlier, so it wasn't their first theatrical release technically, but this was the first one that really had A24's fingerprints on it, because when I think of A24, I think of the things you're talking about. Dreamy, it has sound and music done extremely well, and often to sort of subtract the dialogue, playing over something in a scene where it might usually have sound, but it doesn't.
It doesn't have the kind of neon glow quality that I guess for a while that was A24 to me, right? And
think of the scenes Euphoria, with Paula in the hallway though, with that purple glow and stuff. That because that to me does.
Well, we'll get into that.
Very much.
But no, that's something that I hadn't really. A24, I wasn't familiar with them back then, and so, but now thinking about it, it's just that does.
Well, I think that's, I have, I didn't remember this being an A24 film. It's such a juggernaut now, and so looking back, I guess I didn't clock that. I knew all the hype around the film at the time. I saw it when it won in Best Year and stuff, but I didn't see, or didn't really just say, oh, this is an A24 film, and they're probably going to do great things or something, because it just didn't occur to me, or, you don't always know which production studio to credit for something of that. But
it's also very, very much a singular vision of the writer and director too. It's very much an independent, auteur-driven film, right? It feels like a very personal story, and it I'm trying to think of the right word to put it. It doesn't. Sentimental isn't exactly the right word, but it feels like. A very personal story is being told.
Yeah, because it's not nostalgia or something necessarily for it. I understand. Yeah. It's written by two people. There is Barry Jenkins, the director, and then I don't want to get his name wrong here. I've got it. Tarell Alvin McCraney, and they both actually grew up in the same area in around Miami-ish, around the same time, actually in the same just direct area and whatnot, and it is very much core to their heart, because both of their mothers had drug addiction growing up. One of them is gay, Tarell, and then the other, Barry Jenkins, is not. He often gets mistaken for this, as it is a very, like you said, driven by the director and stuff film, and he frankly is if people think that, then great, then I've done my job or something. So very interesting. But okay, before I give away too much of my fun tidbits, I suppose, let's go ahead and jump in here and just take a look at it. It's I haven't seen it since it first came out. This was 9 years ago, in 2016. And so it's just, I guess let's pop in. We open with our main character who, actually, it's not our main character. I wrote this down at the time. That's wrong. We open with Mahershala Ali's character pulling into park in an apartment building. Yeah. We do not get his name for a while. I'm very sensitive to this now after The Mummy and Fatal Attraction stuff. Yeah. This movie actually also plays with that a good bit, in the sense of that they give you characters' names when they feel like giving them to you. They do not spoon feed you a lot of stuff. They do not, including names here. So Mahershala Ali's character is pulling the apartment building, and we see him, what seems to be a dealer fending off a customer needing a hit. We're not really, again, given, it's not spoon-fed. They're not telling you what drug or something's happening right now.
Yeah. It appears that someone is short of money, and they're trying to hustle out a hit regardless, and the street-level dealer is trying to fin him away, and yeah.
And then we see Mahershala Ali's character look to be his boss, the dealer, and so he goes up and helps him. He sort of asks about business and the guy's mom, and the street-level dealer thanks him for the opportunity. And so we do see, yes, he is sort of over him in that way. Yeah. Some kids run past him, and we see it's not really so much playfulness as it is actually chasing somebody. He makes it into, I have written down his apartment ? But no, this is a sort of just...
yeah, they're abandoned apartments or tenements that are now basically crack houses.
Exactly, that's crack houses. I mean, they call them dope holes, like a bit later, because I struggled with what to call that, I suppose, and being sensitive of that. But he essentially gets into an abandoned apartment, somewhat littered with needles or pipes or things, just to get away. He finds one door that's unlocked. He manages to lock it, and the kids start banging on it with sticks and throwing stuff at the windows just to torment him or to be like, we're still trying to get you.
And something else that I guess that I've become kind of sensitive to now as we do the podcast, major motifs and elements being introduced very subtly and quietly in the very beginning of the film, and we have Sharon, main character, the first chapter of the kind of 3-chapter structure of this, when he's a little boy, a small child, but he's hiding in a desolate, ruined building that I guess used to be a home, but it's all he has. And this is something that this recurs over and over again, and it's such a powerful image just right here, and it becomes this really very, very powerful motif going forward. His inability to find any kind of place that could be called a home.
Absolutely.
So
he thinks the boys are still accosting him at this point, because he kind of hears more knocking on the window here. But it's actually Mahershala Ali's character, where he peels the board back and is kind of checking on him. And he says he offers him to get him something to eat. But the boy is very scared looking. He's quite silent in this. We find he's excellent at being silent, as you mentioned. The dialogue's already pretty light in the film, but when the main character is quite a reticent person, I believe at some point he's called out as barely being able to string 3 words together, even by like one of his good friends, and so it's
he's as you could perhaps understand seeing this character in the very beginning of the film being chased by a pack of bullies screaming homophobic insults at him, trying to catch him and beat him up. He's not really feeling very trusting or feeling like really inviting anyone in, and is just clamped shut, doesn't say anything. And
I mean, he doesn't know him from Adam at this point, but Mahershala Ali is very patient and sort of says, or the exact line, because it intrigued me, it was, "Come on now, it can't be no worse out here." Which is interesting, because again, when you talk about kind of trying to pull him out of himself, or perhaps his, again, not quite home situation or something, Mahershala Ali does try to help him both come out of his shell, come out of this place, come out of a lot of things ultimately, and we'll get into that, but it's interesting.
He's the friendly neighborhood crack dealer with a heart of gold. It's a complicated character from the very beginning, for sure, because he immediately has a very just kind of calm paternal vibe and demeanor, which this is not a stereotypical like crack narrative, right? Just from the very beginning, right? This is, it sets an interesting world.
Certainly,
this is present. It's a part of the community. It's as we're going to see very soon, it's going to have some very awful effects, and they're going to be very personal to the protagonist. But the character himself, he's a guy. He's not some monster. He cares about his street level dealers. He's got he's got empathy.
That's true. I mean, as a drug dealer, you've seen him ask about somebody's mom, help out a kid, and I believe the director has quotes around this, kind of saying like he gets a chance to be more than just a drug dealer in this case, just because most people don't. If you're cast in any sort of media as a crack dealer, you're probably not going to get a good shining golden heart moment. So it's certainly turns a bit of things on its head, and as you said, it does establish sort of. Just being out in the community and such. So we get our first title card right after this when he goes with him. It's kind of saying a little I, number 1 there for little. Yeah. And as we go, we'll kind of see these. We get precisely 3 title cards in the movies, and they all refer sort of to his name or nickname going on at the time, as we'll see. Yeah. And so we find Ali and the boy, and I'm going to call him just Ali because he does not have a character name for this whole thing. I don't know. I can call him his character name. I know it, mind you, but what do you want to do here on that?
Well, Juan. I mean, as the character's
his name is Juan. We'll call him that. That is his name. I'll call it out in the movie when it actually gets done because it is an interesting time they divulge his name. But just for the sake of it, his name is Juan. So we find Juan and our boy Chiron at a diner eating as Juan asks what the boy's name is and where he lives, so we can get him home and not have him running around what he knows is a somewhat dangerous or drug-filled area. But however, our boy, again, whose name himself has not been divulged yet, he remains silent. And so Juan pulls the tray of food back that the boy was scarfing back to himself, and you get the saddest little head hang from little Chiron. And so, I mean, Juan's slides back. He's like, "Oh, I was just kidding. Like, I wouldn't actually do you like that." But he sees just kind of how sensitive he is, even for a little small thing, perhaps.
The boy needs some TLC. He just is very sad, very very clammed up, and we see the two of them at the diner, and because Sharon doesn't say anything at all, he just remains silent. Ultimately, Juan takes him to his home with him and introduces him to Janelle Monáe playing his girlfriend. Mm-hmm.
Presumably, we never got more than that, I guess. But Teresa, that's who she's playing.
She is understandably surprised and perturbed that her boyfriend would just come home with a small child in his custody. She's tasked with trying to get him to just open up a bit. They feed him another plate of food. It's
very much. I mean, Juan remarks, well, it's fine if you don't talk to me, but until my girl gets to you, she's going to make you talk. And so, but she's very sweet. It's a little Chiron in this. Ultimately, I mean, she's taken aback, I guess, at first. She brought this stranger boy in here. But, I mean, she gets in the car and sort of sits with him in silence until, we see them at the dinner table. And so, where he's scarving more food. So we also get that vibe. Perhaps he's not the most well-fed kid. There's a lot of poverty-coded situations in his home life and what we see. Yeah, and that,
and also just figuratively, he's just without. We can guess that he's just without any kind of emotional nourishment. Right? He's being chased by bullies, calling him faggot and trying, yelling, "Get him!" And we get the impression that this was not the first time this has happened. He has kind of a downtrodden resignation to it all about himself, and so it takes a while. It takes a lot of patience on the two of them. Again, the local drug dealer with a heart of gold. I guess at the beginning of the film, you kind of wonder, like, just what, like, what is this? It makes sense in this film. I like to think about whatever film I'm watching, kind of in the context of like, does this seem similar to other things, right? And again, it's not your usual crack narrative. It's not that kind of film where it's just all about like hard edge and crime, right? It's it's a slice of life still. It involves these things, but it's still these are real people living their lives out still, right? And so, yeah, I just in reflecting on, does a character make sense? Is this good writing? Like, do the contours of this character really, do they feel real? And yeah, like I don't know, maybe I'm just too cynical, but I grew to appreciate the character. My first impression, and this is maybe not so much the second time watching it, but the first time I did have this thought that, like, wow, this is the nicest crack dealer ever. But yeah, I mean, as we'll come to understand, this film is a lot about the fronts that men put up to demonstrate their masculinity, and there's lots of tension between those fronts and the very timid people that exist behind those layers, and yeah, and again...
And there are layers. I mean, that's important to call out on that. That's a good word for that, because I think that's just what's shown. And you could be a complete hard ass or a complete tough guy, but if you see a child being bullied and you have empathy for that, that doesn't cancel out those other parts of you, mind you.
Yeah.
You don't have to stamp out the nicest things about you, and I think part of this movie covers that as well. There's a whole lot of masculinity. When I went through themes, I frankly got to like 7, and I probably could have kept going, but that was a big one, of course.
And again, like, major motifs and elements being introduced in the early part of the film, like when we first see both of these characters in the same frame, right? We see Juan, tending to one of his street level dealers, and then we see Sharon running past him, being chased by a group of kids, right? We kind of see we see these two characters kind of on like divergent paths, right? Like, you have one going this way, and then from the exact same point you have Sharon going in a different direction, and then they kind of meet, which is something, as we'll see at the end of the film, happens, kind of, right? And again, it's like very early in the film, and it's kind of happening again, right? These two characters that kind of start, but then they start going in opposite direction, but then they come and they meet, and it's... Yeah, again, a little piece of the structure of the film.
This is where we get his name too. He does finally get coaxed out after the second plate of food and stuff, saying his name is Chiron, but the people call him Little. And again, referring back to the title card, people call him Little. This is phase 1 of this whole thing. It's Little. So in this chapter, Teresa says, "What do you want to be called?" And he really doesn't respond. And so she says, "I'm going to call you by your name." And perhaps that's not something been afforded to him, again, if he's being bullied or really a bit marginalized by his peers or something, but it's just nice. He seems a bit happy about this, and I mean, just having anybody care for him, as we'll find out, might be a rarity.
And it again, motifs right in the beginning of the film, being called by your name, just being called by your name, right? Not something that you don't want to be called, but being acknowledged for who you are and being seen for who you are, right? Is this the first time that we find his name? He finally says his name.
It is,
right?
yeah. This is it. Yes,
when he finally says something, then we finally get a sense that, but until then it's been called faggot and all kinds of epithets, right? And then, it takes a while to get him to open up. Again, watching this film the second time, it really is beautiful, and it was kind of emotional watching it, right? It's that heavy, quiet resignation that a small child being homophobically bullied can just have, right? This kind of old man slouch when you're 10. It just... Ooh, yeah.
So they offer to have him stay the night, which he accepts, and it's the next morning, and Juan takes him to the house, where Chiron finds his naturally distraught mother. I mean, her son didn't come home last night. He looks about 10, maybe, at this point.
Yeah, he's a boy.
You would probably worry. He's a preteen. He's definitely not a teenager at this point.
Yeah,
but Juan tells her about the boys having chased him to a hole on 15th, which she seems to clock right away and know about.
Yeah.
And he goes to say goodbye and offers up a fist bump, saying, "Little man," but the mom pulls Chiron back, doesn't really want him connecting with this guy. And so here again, we get a maybe we don't be friends with the neighborhood drug dealer sort of a sentiment. In a more black and white manner compared to the gray, good bits we just saw of him. So she has no reason necessarily to trust this guy or to think positively of him if she knows even a little bit about him.
Yeah. She seems to respond very quickly. Perhaps that she recognizes him, recognizes the address or the area, both, perhaps, right? As we'll find out, she's buying crack from Juan, and it is destroying her just step by step. In charting the progression of these characters, her story arc, Chiron's mother, is very sad. Her life unravels from crack addiction, and we see her as a functioning adult, right? She comes back and nurses scrubs with a hospital badge on, right? So she is a full-time working adult, right? Doing well-adjusted adult things. But when we see the interior of their apartment and just this is a film very much told in tone and lighting and just visuals. The interior of the apartment the light is pale, it's dusty, it feels untended to. The first signs of a kind of decay setting in, right? We see it's a single-parent home.
We get the vibe it's a single parent. Yeah, I don't know if we get confirmation of that. Again, I guess something I admire about the film in many ways is it does not spoon-feed you stuff, like I said. It's very show, not tell often, and some of the times you really don't get told what you want to know at that exact moment. Sometimes you're like, as a viewer, okay, what happened? What are you going to tell me? Such, but it doesn't. And so you already kind of jumped a little bit ahead, but I think it's important here because when you talk about her, how it sort of spirals, she does do a good bit of mothering here. Once she gets inside with Chiron, she kind of states she's glad he's home. He kind of, after getting some love, goes to watch TV, maybe pull a VHS out or something, and she's like, no, not TV, like sort of punishing you for like you didn't come home at night. And she just seems like a good mother at this moment. We really don't get much of it. I think they do, and it's probably good that you said that, but it'll show. It's definitely a spiral of the things that we go down this path with her on.
She seems like a mother at this point.
That's fair, yeah.
Just she's disciplining her child. She's concerned about her child's whereabouts, but the pressure is showing. It's obvious that the weight of life is very much on her. She has a hospital badge on, so she's a full-time working nurse. Like you said, this is a film that doesn't really hold your hand necessarily or spoon feed you all these these details or bits of information. It just puts the evidence out there and invites you to understand what it means, right? And it's obvious that she would perhaps be an obviously better mother, but the world is just kind of, it's grinding her. It's grinding her down.
And I mean, there would be reason for her to not clean the apartment if she's very busy and being a single mom, but it is interesting. I have, the word presumably down in my notes many times because it's like, presumably this is what the scene is trying to show us, and often it's paid off quickly after that. Again, when I say the viewer doesn't get it right away, it's like, we'll lead you there if we want you to. Sometimes they don't. But,
yeah.
So we kind of see him next. We'll jump because I mean we're going to see her a lot in this, but we see how he interacts with other boys next. We see him in a field here with about 15 other boys. 15 other black boys in a field park with a train running next to it, where they're all playing around with the ball and just sort of athletically goofing around. And a lot of them are having a grand old time, but we really don't see a little Chiron really engaging too much directly. And when they're dribbling straight at him, he looks a little terrified. He's like, "Oh no, the ball is coming towards me," or the thing.
Yeah, this scene, the impression that I got is that they were playing a game, and they all seemed to understand how to play that game and what it was about, except Chiron, who
was on the fringe, the outside, sort of looking in.
Not sure what he was looking at, but it was coming at him fast, and it was frightening, and probably could hurt him. This very much, it's like, oh, this reminds me of being a gay boy growing up. I was like, yep, I feel like I got that one. Just, yep. It's like, yeah, okay, I know what this scene's about.
It's a common story. Yeah. I ended up being, both for my father and various reasons, a sporty gay or into sports, and I can talk sports, this or that. But many of my gay friends, are like, had this experience in gym class or in any number of situations where they're like, this probably isn't for me, like you guys. And frankly, that's what happens. Chiron ends up walking off and is like, this isn't for me. And so he walks off, and only one boy ends up chasing him down. We learn his friend Kevin. And Kevin seems to be a good friend, but also an observant one, as he asks Chiron, what's up? Why are you leaving? And then as they kind of are just walking off, why do you let people pick on you all the time? Because he's seen this. He notices Chiron and sees him differently, perhaps in a way than other people do.
Well, he really sees him. He just sees him, right, as a person, as the one named Chiron, and not someone that has all these epithets attached to him, right? Just kind of, there are these pivotal characters in this person's life that give him something he desperately needs, and Kevin, what he gives him is seeing him. Just seeing him as the person. And
it's, even in this scene, what's happening is he asks him why, and says that they think he's soft, and Chiron himself is like, I'm not soft, and Kevin says, I know you're not soft, but you need to show them that. And so we get a good bit of Kevin. Kevin does see him, and he's like, you need to let other people see you in a way that is, you repeat it a few times. Frankly, Juan echoes this in certain ways at times, but then they wrestle. They have a fun little, like, just two boys hanging out there more on the same wavelength situation, as opposed to what was just going on over there, where he didn't feel sort of uncomfortable. It didn't seem any animus. This wasn't like a violent wrestle.
Like Kevin's trying to toughen him up. Just trying to scrap him up a bit.
And Kevin says there, I see, I knew you weren't soft, and then they race off. They're just having a good old boy time, giggling or whatever. So,
a very, very touching scene. A very standoffish person, Chiron. Right? He doesn't let people in easily at all. He doesn't let it close, let alone touch him in any meaningful way, physically or emotionally. And Kevin does both. It's this tender moment of kind of like young boys' love, right? It's very just kind of a noble love. Right, they have this very touching, endearing moment where they just kind of they just shared this very kind of private moment, right?
And it's a positive moment. We certainly see a lot of negative moments in life, and how he interacts with other people, or rather how people interact with him often is the deal. It's nice. It is a little minor uplifting scene. Like, at least he has somebody. You got a friend going there for him.
And Kevin is caring about him by caring about the appearance of his masculinity too, which
that's a great point.
It's concern, but it's concern about this, and it's a very important, very, very, very important theme in the film, is how a black gay man constitutes their masculinity.
And frankly, a black man, because I mean, you see his little friends grow up too, or the lessons other people are taking, or how they behave. And again, you talk layers, and there's performative masculinity, there's hyper masculinity, aggressive masculinity. There's a lot of things.
There's fronting. There's all kinds of the layers of performance and performativity. And Chiron doesn't have it, and so this takes me back to when I was a little gay boy too. Was just I looking back on it, and even then I was just kind of aware of it. I never really just had a strong kind of boy persona. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't feel like a girl, but I definitely wasn't a roughhouser.
Not a big butch boy over there.
I didn't understand the strange dogpile game that was coming at me at high speed. I didn't understand it at all, but it was terrifying. And so it's just, it's Pride Month, and it's a celebration, but it's also a time to kind of remember how far we've come, and that can be a personal thing too. It's like, oh boy, I remember.
Very much. I mean, this is 9 years on. It's not distant past. I mean, what's being recollected here? Obviously, we fight for hoping that little gay kids can have acceptance, and it's incremental. It goes forward and back sometimes, depending on what's going on and who's in charge of policy. But all right, we have a long movie here, so let's keep on rolling. We can let's talk about this. So Juan pulls up to his house. We see Mahershala Ali again, and he finds Chiron sitting outside on the lawn furniture, waiting for him. No words spoken. Again, not a man of words. Chiron here, and then another little hallmark of this film, perhaps A24 in general, but this film is they really just they may not dwell on a scene for more than a few seconds, and it's gone. It's shifted off, because the next we see him in just a few seconds is at the beach. It doesn't tell you again. It doesn't say like we drove in the car, we got in the car, we got here, and then that's what we did. It's just like here they are. Keep up. So we get a great shot, a very artsy shot of the waves sort of half going over the camera as Chiron is seemingly nervous in the water. This is further driven home as Juan is holding the boy, trying to teach him how to float, and then he's ultimately showing him how to swim. And he sweetly says sort of, I got you, and I'm not going to let you go. And I don't think, again, he probably would have heard that, and he definitely didn't hear it from a man at this point in his life, from what we know.
Juan is as close to a father as he has, which, with that said, Juan is about as ideal a stand-in father figure as one could imagine in the setting and the context and the milieu that Chiron is in, and it's just rich with powerful imagery and symbolism.
It does look like a baptism almost.
He is also the high priest of Chiron's fragile kind of virtual house, right? He is standing in as the father. He is now standing in as the priest of the house as well. He is baptizing Chiron while also showing him the ways of manhood, right?
And I have at my point, or in my notes at this point, it's at this point I'm starting to question if Chiron's mother is a single mom, as he seems to just be lapping up this attention from Juan's character, or Ali. And I've mentored like boys, that don't have a father or like a little male figures around and stuff. And so I've seen this. I very much keyed into that. I think they did it well, because you see how much he is just absorbing this and loving this, even if he's not a very emotive child, I suppose, on that. He has big expressive eyes to a degree, but his mouth isn't always doing it. But I mean, just the fact that he showed up again, for one, because he didn't have to do that at all. He could have gone literally anywhere, but that little bit of attention and that he got, and positivity from Juan had him come back. And so, I mean, again, he wants that. He needs that, perhaps.
Well, yeah. He has a mother, I guess technically, right? If he has a biological father in his life, it kind of doesn't matter. He's effectively fatherless in terms of missing that, in terms of that absence. And so the first moment that it's filled, he of course just almost kind of primordially gravitates towards it, right? There's the kind of a certain kind of ancient logic to it, right? You know, a young boy following in the footsteps of his father, whoever that might be in this case, right? If it's the friendly local drug dealer, then that's who it is. And if this is a person that can give him a modicum of compassion and just an inkling of support and knowledge, and just can help him come of age, however that can be done, then yeah, it's finding those things in the most desperate of circumstances, right? That, you know, even in the midst of an ocean, there's someone there to help you swim, right? Yeah, so
very much. I mean, it takes a village type stuff, and when you talk about, I mean, a father in the not quite biological way, just as a sort of what somebody perhaps needs, or again, a positive male role model. It could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, it could be someone in the community in this case, and so it's interesting. This is a cute scene, because it really does teach him to swim in this moment, and it's extra cute if you know that he actually had to teach this child to swim. They only had ultimately 90 minutes to shoot the scene because a storm was rolling in.
Oh, wow.
And so the director was like telling Mahershala Ali, all right, well, I'm going to need you to teach this kid to swim fast, essentially. And so everything you see going on here is real, like that happened. And so
directors, once again, watch out. Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
hope you don't drown this boy. So.
By the way, he can't swim. So action. Okay.
So they do that. They're done. Little plays with the waves as Juan monologues about how he just has a great monologue here, sort of, and again, it's easy to monologue when the child doesn't talk back, but he talks about how anywhere in the world you go, there are black people, and not to forget about it, and that they were the first on this planet. He's sort of just teaching him to, like, don't be ashamed, or like, you belong in that moment, and then he immediately sort of moves on to talk about his own childhood. He talks about how he's from Cuba, and he starts to relate to him because of that. He recalls a time when he ran past an older lady in the moonlight, because he loved to run around at night, he said. He loved to run around barefoot. Yeah. And she said to him, running around, catching up all that light, in moonlight, black boys look blue. And she says, you blue, that's what I'm going to call you. And then that's when Chiron asked him if his name is Blue then, which has Juan chuckle sort of wryly and say, like, nah. And he says, a direct quote, nah, at some point you got to decide for yourself who you're going to be. Can't let nobody make that decision for you. And again, when we've already sort of, you've talked about it, the nicknames and the fact that you might accept something foisted upon you versus having people just call you your name, it's an important thing to have said to the boy of him.
Yeah, what a scene to unpack. There's a lot that goes on in the scene. Mm-hmm. It's almost a fable that one might relate to a young boy at a campfire, and that's kind of what happens, right? Mm-hmm. They're in the moonlight, and it's an epic declaration that you don't have reason to fear being out in the world, which is exactly what Chiron fears. There's nothing else he fears more than being in the world, because the world has been very unkind to him already, for sure. And then the idea of the light that is cast on you, and what that might make you look like, but whether or not that matters. And then the idea of names. Ooh, they're just. I'm trying to think of the. I'm trying to tile this together. There's it's such a the scene just feels.
It's very powerful, and yeah, it's kind of hard to like articulate again.
Trying to articulate.
If you're trying to unpack that exact little story, because it's a brief little thing that they talk about, but it comes back into play throughout the movie. And the director and the cast and crew rather, use it to good effect, because often they would oil up some of the cast members and then have lightings in strategic places or certain color lights or such to really make it reflect and look good on the skin and such, because it is a motif that continues, as mentioned. So when you set something up early, it's going to keep coming back on this one. And the ocean, the moonlight, all this stuff. Again, fatherhood. There's just a lot going on in this one scene. If you look at all the themes, a lot of them converge in this scene, are just present in it.
Yeah, the essence is palpable. Just how they glow in the moonlight, and this tale told. Of course, the movie is named Moonlight, so you can be forgiven for thinking, oh wow, this is a very important scene for decoding the film, and yeah, I feel that it is right. It's a story about black masculinity, and so looking blue under moonlight, it becomes. It just ever more broad and encompassing, right? It's a story about just being seen, about just the complexity of managing these stories that everyone will tell about you, and trying to be a person in the midst of this. We see Sharon, in an ocean, and even before that, it was kind of like he was in an ocean, just kind of being battered around and tossed around, and then kind of finally learning how to swim, and internally trying to navigate who he is, trying to understand if he's even like just what person he is, right? And even in the midst of this, being a black male.
It's blackness and masculinity in the same breaths that he's explaining it, or essentially advising, even in sort of metaphor or sort of prose in a bit. But it's very much both. He's telling him, and sort of again something he just doesn't have probably, and so it's valuable information.
Yeah,
we see
the inner turmoil,
how it impacts later,
and the turmoil of how all that is perceived about him. And of course, the answer is no. You cut through it. You decide this for yourself. That's the answer. It's not to wonder what one looks like in what light. It's to decide who you are. Just again, if you're going to have a father stand-in, it might as well be Juan, the friendly local drug dealer, because again, that's
because he's nailing it so far.
Yeah, he's really crushing it in the fatherly advice department for sure.
So we see Juan drop Sharon off at his house, having clearly grown fond of the boy, as he sort of confirms, did you enjoy the day? Did you enjoy swimming? And even gives him a little pocket money, again, because what we've seen so far is just poverty-coded a bit. It just is, and then we'll learn more about that later, as you mentioned. When Sharon knocks to get in, the mother sees Juan and quickly yanks Sharon right in the door, as Juan's left to be like, hey, hold up, wait, oh, nope, and then slammed in his face. So she doesn't want him there, but we see her clean up some items quickly from a table, and also usher a man back into her bedroom. The items clink notably. Again, this is one of these times where it's they don't immediately give you the full context of this, but you have that inkling left in your mind. What was she cleaning up that she didn't want Sharon to see?
I'm guessing paraphernalia.
Well, you spoiled it, but yes.
Well,
no, you've already gone through it. So yes, we see her essentially hiding her drug habit from her child early on here, and inviting a man that Sharon does not know back into her bedroom. And this could be a boyfriend or a date or something, but we also get the vibe, especially what we learn later in the film, this could be a trick. This could be how she is making money to afford said drug habit. And so, again, we're kind of using a bit of later film clues to give you this context now, but as you watch it, it's just, you get a little bit there. So,
yeah, and we have a moment of competing father figures. We have this male interloper in Sharon's home.
Who is mom sanctioned versus Juan, who is not at this moment or such, perhaps.
Yeah. So there's the tension between Juan, the man who is his father figure, and then this guy, who is, I guess, his mother's consort. If we're thinking about the structure of this, this man is giving his mother what she needs, and the implication is maybe they're going back there to have sex or to just do a grim adult things, right? Sharon's a small child, and his mother hastily grabs her stuff and goes back to the room with a strange man. They're in the midst of the adult world back there, but yeah, just. And as we discover, this father figure is kind of also giving Sharon's mother what she needs.
Maybe.
There are a lot of...
I think we only see this guy one other time, really. I mean, his whole, when we talk competing fathers, all he says is like, "How you doing, little man?" And that might be the only thing he says to him in the movie, frankly, the interaction I recall.
Yeah.
It doesn't end up being he doesn't end up being a huge part in it, mind you. But it is just like, I wanted to hang out with that guy, or maybe I wanted that guy to be my dad, but you don't always get that. You might think of it as a coach that is somebody finds that's a great father figure versus their stepdad who's a shitbag or something. Like, it just kind of is like that, except he's definitely not even to the level of stepdad, at least not that we've seen. Again, this is they don't divulge a lot right away of this. When I say that, I mean, I have in my notes, it's like, what was clinking? Is it weed pipes? Other type of pipes? Was this implied to be prostitution? TBD, I suppose. And so it's just, again, it's not spelled out right away. So we'll get there. But it cuts to Little in dance class, and he seems way more in his element than in the athletic scene. And this is, again, just almost like if you had your eyes closed for like 4 seconds, it's probably gone. It's an extremely brief scene. They do this a lot. I think they do a lot of telling with some short ones that don't just dwell on it. We don't ever see him in dance class again. It was just like he seemed good and happy and whatever there.
Yeah.
I was going to mention the short scene. I wasn't sure when it popped up. We have another very short scene. We are at the finding several of your peers in a room where, what are they doing in this room as you wander into the door? And so, they're like, "Hey, I thought that door was locked," as Sharon wanders in, and Kevin is the one who comes over and is like, "I'll let you in," because I think somebody even remarks, like, why the fuck is he here, or something. Would you like to describe this scene?
Yeah,
it's a very short one, too. Again, this is like a blink, you miss it, and if you didn't really pay attention, you might not even know what happened here. But
it's a scene from the strange and curious world of emergent young boys' awkward sexuality, and the curiosity of your own genitals and
how your body stacks up against other boys type stuff. They get in a classroom, we get a circular shot, we get a few of these through the movie, but it's just a bunch of boys standing in a circle, and all we see after this is just we only see them from the waist up, but we hear unzipping sounds, and they look down, and it's essentially let's all compare our penises scene.
Just looking at each other's dicks.
And again, I mentioned there are 2 co-writers, one straight and one gay. This came from the straight ones, like life story and recollection. And I've been around some of the gayest stuff I've seen happen around me has been with straight people and what they're doing. Like they loved to play gay chicken or do weird let's get naked things. It just happens. There's this exploration natural, especially around the age he's shown to be at, preteen, middle school. It's just. And it goes. It just comes and goes, and it just goes, and we never really talk about this again. Nobody ever says, "Remember that time we compared penises in the classroom?" It's gone.
Just one of those things that just happens. There's no fuss to it because they're just young boys, and it's just going from not pubescent to pubescent. it's a cute, touching moment. It's quite meaningful in this film, right? It's one of these moments of male vulnerability, right? And it's very secret. It's hidden away, and it just happens, and then they don't ever talk about it again, right? Just the tension of fronting masculinity versus...
And literally measuring masculinity, sort of in this case, because you want to see how you stack up to the other boys. Versus, you need to be the toughest, strongest, biggest, largest cocked, whatever. I mean, it just is like these are all the gems in your crowns of masculinity type stuff. And so... And
it's not an erotic moment at all. They're just curious.
Exactly. It's not a sexual scene. It isn't played for anything like that so much as, it's just not zip. Oh, all right. Look at that. So it cuts on, like I said, pretty quickly. We next see Chiron at home where he's preparing himself a bath. But when I talk about poverty-coded, this is very much, it's that. It's an untraditional manner where he fills the tub up with some water, which is presumed to be cold. He squirts a bunch of dish soap in it, and then he gets hot water heated up on the stove that he puts in the tub to warm it up and to...
And before that, we see the TV is gone. The space on the counter where it was, it's just now noticeably blank.
Oh wow, I didn't pick that up. But that's,
so we get these signs that his mother's drug addiction is leading her to sell belongings. The fact that there's no hot water implies that she didn't pay the hot water bill, and so things are falling apart. The household is broken. It is getting more broken, and these are just ever more signs of his just always disintegrating home life. He just can never really find a place that can be a home. He always has things standing in, either father figures or mother figures or homes. Right, just never the real actual thing. It's always something that's the closest approximation that he can get.
If he has it at all, because he's alone in this scene too. I mean, he already doesn't have his father in the house, and so he doesn't have his mother in the house. Because again, if she's out doing things, and we're very close to revealing, again, you nailed it, and your observation is just spot on for this. And because we've already told them, spectacular. But I didn't clock the TV thing. I definitely, understood the hot water bill. But let's just go on. This is happening like right next. So we see Juan, still unnamed here, as I note, parks back at the apartment complex and daps up his little dealer boy while chatting with him. They see somebody lighting up the freshly purchased drugs just right down the street, which is a no-no. You don't do that because you're going to get the cops over. And so he goes over to check on it. But what he finds is not just, these are random people that have purchased drugs. It is Chiron's mom. And it is Mr. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Guy from earlier. And he's like, hey, what the fuck? And Juan kind of pulls her out of there while she is just like, hey, leave me alone. I'm smoking crack here. But he kind of is just like, hey, like... A, don't do this here, period, and B, maybe don't do this, but she's not in a place to be talked to by her drug dealer about a drug habit because she clearly still feels she has the moral high ground or such in this situation, and so she kind of gets pretty hurtful and spiteful with him, and
she points out the obvious problem in all this, and that is Juan is clocking her for being a bad mother while he is selling her crack. Right. If she's falling apart and as a mother, well, who could we maybe put some blame on that? But she goes further. It's as fatherly as he's been on some level. It's not his place. It's not his place to be clocking her as if he were her husband or a father actually in that household. And so his concern and his admirable concern for Chiron, it's getting misplaced, or it's being presented in a context that is not appropriate. A great dramatic moment, and
Well, she starts to say things like, are you going to raise my son? A couple of times, prompting Juan to respond, are you going to raise him? And that's when it gets even more heated because, she retorts right back to his face, are you going to keep selling me rocks? Huh? And
her name's Paula, and I was
also unnamed to date, but yes.
You've caught this like multiple times now. I'm trying to remember when her name is actually revealed.
I believe I have it down, or I'm pretty sure I do, because I'm so sensitive to this now.
But it's a moment where she gets fleshed out as a character, right? She's seen as this tense mother falling apart under the weight of a crack cocaine addiction, but now she is a person, and we get a sense that she's not oblivious. She is aware of the situation, quote unquote, that he's being fatherly, but does he really want to be the parent of a gay boy? And we see her kind of do a mincing walk to kind of parody and mock the way that she sees her child walking, which she
asks him if Juan is going to be the one to tell him why he's bullied by the other boys all the time. Which again, not spelling it out for you, mind you, with that case, but we get the vibe that she sees that her son is perhaps gay or going to be gay in this sense.
We get a bit of Juan being called out for being an indulgent divorced dad, right? You can imagine Juan and Paula having been married at some point and then now divorced, and Paula has custody and is the caretaker and the one raising the child, and he sees his divorced dad every once in a while, and he's very indulgent and kind of love bombs the child and then sends him back. There's a difference between being fatherly and being a parent 24 hours a day, especially when you have, and again, most parents don't imagine raising a gay child. It's because
she's a bit mean about it in the scene, and we immediately see something following that is in that vein.
She lets her. I don't know if I'd say she's mean. She's keyed up. She's high on crack, and she's letting her hair out because she feels like she was sassed by someone who had no call.
That's very true.
And so she's not being mean towards her son, but she's letting her hair down. She's letting them have it.
Yeah, when you tell somebody they ain't shit, I mean that's a sign.
It's basically a you ain't shit retort.
Oh, that's a direct quote.
Yes,
from Miss Paula here, wagging that finger. But to his credit, Juan remains rather calm and silent throughout this, and kind of takes his medicine. He feels the conflict seemingly internally at her words and vitriol compared to him trying to be a good person and community figure, presumably by helping Sharon out, and he can't really defend himself effectively. I think anything he tried, probably not going to land on the right ears right now with, again, keyed up, just having smoked crack right in that car woman, but also it just probably wouldn't be a good defense because how can you in certain ways? Like, how can you damage lives of some people and perhaps impact children negatively when you're also trying to be out there impacting children positively? It just doesn't, the math doesn't math. Is the thing. So
there are so many powerful themes or motifs in this film, and one of them is the people in Sharon's life who nurture him and also hurt him, and it's the same people, and they do these things in turn. One is his stand-in father figure, but is also the one destroying his mother. So, and we'll see this contradiction played out with his friend Kevin later. Also, his mother, in the first chapter at least, still paying the rent, is still creating the home where he lives. I guess technically it shows concern for his well-being, right? But is clearly harming him, right? It's, again, that kind of nurturing / pain tension in all the major characters in his life. The boy just can't get a break.
No, and I mean, the immediate next scene we see, and this is the sort of the lighting I was talking about that is very A24 to me. They do a music overlaid, beautifully lit shot of her in the hallway, just yelling at Sharon.
Yeah.
And
Boy, that's a powerful scene.
We'll cover potentially what she says after, because we get a sense of it just through a question he asks. But she is yelling at him, and
but it's silent. It's
silent.
It's just music. All the other sound is suppressed, but we see them on opposite ends of the hallway, staring at each other, but just kind of mirroring each other in a odd way, and in some way they have arrived at this same point from different paths, but kind of for the same reason. They're both getting something that they need from the same man, but there's something deeply problematic with it, and they're both kind of, in some ways, they're the same character in that moment, but they're mirrors. They're opposite of it, right? What his mother is getting is destroying her, and what he's getting is allowing him to grow. It's again, they're facing each other, but they're mirrors, right?
It's a very interesting scene, and one that I have, I guess, a few little tidbits about at the end, but the director, Barry Jenkins, talks about it as he has interviews where he was asked about, like, did you know, or like, was this film personal? When did you know? And he talks about the scene where he says when Naomi, I forget her last name at this exact moment, I'd have to scroll down here, but when Paula is screaming and doing this whole scene, Barry Jenkins said, "Oh, that's my mother." Because remember, both of the co-writers of this had drug-addicted mothers, and they each have their own stake and very personal sort of experience in all this, and so it comes through in what we see. And he talks about how he had to sort of direct her and talk to her about this, and how at times he was like, she was kind of giving me therapy, and then I had to direct her because he really saw his mom, his own mother, in Paula, the character that Naomi was playing in this. Oof. And so it was very well done. I'll talk more about that later, but it's beautiful too. It's a very, very A24 thing, and so it just is extremely clear to me upon a rewatch of that. But that's all. I mean, we see it silently. We don't see anything. And then we cut to Juan's house where there's a lot of knocking, and he kind of apprehensively goes to the door because, again, he's a drug dealer and somebody's banging on his house door, and he's like, hey, who might this be? But he gets there, and we do find out it's Sharon coming over to visit. He's back to being quiet and quite sullen, probably from being yelled at last night, if we're to assume this isn't somewhat chronological immediacy. But despite Juan and Teresa trying to get some smiles out of him and talking to him, it just doesn't really work out in that exact moment. And so Juan teaches him at least to not sit with his back to the door, because how else would you know somebody's creeping up on you? Which is another bit of just passed down masculinity and bit of protect yourself. I mean, we talked about Kevin kind of just being like, hey man, stand up for yourself, protect yourself or something. Be you, but maybe just don't sit in a way where you're exposed to being hurt by somebody else if you're going to.
But in this context, it's exactly the advice that Juan has been giving. It's fatherly, but it is from his perspective, which, I mean, he's a crack dealer, and this is crack dealer advice. Don't sit with your back to a door because you don't know if someone's going to bust through and open fire. It's fatherly, but it shows that there is now there's a distance and a difference between these two, right? It is
weird to give to a 10-year-old or something to be like,
yeah, and it's advice that highlights this tension. This is a 10-year-old boy, and he's coming here to talk about his sexuality, but here's Juan giving him advice about not being shy.
It's true. It's
like wow, yeah,
maybe that helps. Like, I don't know. Yeah,
but it just shows the tension. It shows that there's an important disconnect, and it's I think a taste of what's about to unfold, right? It's kind of a little metaphorical, like kind of appetizer, because the conversation about to unfold, it's very touching. He just asks him, like, what is a faggot? And he
first the thing that gets him to speak up, because he's remained silent this whole scene despite trying to get him to go, he speaks up is when Juan says he saw his mom last night, and immediately he looks up and says, I hate her. Because again, we've just seen the interaction they had, and there's that tension and push or pull between mom and dad here in that sense, and mom was pretty awful to him last night, is causing things to go missing from his house, and at least at the moment, he's like, I'm here for you, trying to get something from you because I'm not getting this. And
no, it's a brutal thing to say, but
one of the themes of this whole movie as well is cycles and things reoccurring, going over again. And Juan talks about how he says he hated his mom too, but he misses her like hell now, and so.
It's again, he's very, very fatherly. He is, he is. I mean, there's a reason that he got acclaim for this role and how he played it, and what went down. It's extremely well done. But Janelle Monáe, Teresa brings them both some juice as they just sit briefly, silently around the table. And here is when Sharon looks up and asks, "Yes, your question." So go on with this. And it's just. It's just heartbreaking. Just ask very innocently, "What is a faggot?" And we've heard him and seen the bullies yell this at him.
But I almost took from this, or I did rather, I think his mom could have yelled it at him last night. I mean, we just see her yelling silently.
Yeah, we find out that later that what she's yelling is, "Don't look at me." But it's not clear. It's just, we just see her yelling something angrily and hateful. But we've already seen the signs that Sharon understands that he is different, or his place in the world is different, or there's something about him that is different, or that distinguishes him negatively from the other boys, and he'd like
to know more about it. And that's just, I mean, if you've been called this so many times and you don't know what it is, you'd want to know, at minimum. And
just like so many times, the film, it shows but it doesn't tell, and this is a boy on the cusp of puberty who's just having those first moments of sexual awareness, right? But in this context, right, where he's being labeled with the insult before he even understands what else, and it's as young boys do, anti-gay epithets get thrown around. They just get thrown around.
Boy, do they! And it's just, online gaming, not a help to that.
But at the same time, I think a lot of I can speak from perspective as a gay man, and looking back, did I walk in a way that just made it obvious? Did I have mannerisms that I wasn't aware of, but just people were aware of it being different? And when young boys act a little differently, of course, the first assumption is that they're gay, whether or not it's true. But young gay boys, it's not just the verbal diarrhea that's common of little boys, right? These insults, they of course will resonate and stand out, and they'll be remembered, and
they'll rattle around in your head too. I mean, he's clearly been mulling this over, and perhaps again has not had somebody to ask that he trusts in this.
And when this is the word space that you find your sexuality exists in, it's confusion plus fear. But it's multiplicative, it's not additional. It's the horrible, exponentially larger thing that's the product of those, right? And that is what you have to understand your sexuality in as a little boy asking what faggot means. It's just, geez. Oh,
I think it's something that a lot of gay LGBT people anything have gone through when you have a slur associated, or you just see such malice being thrown around about gay people, and then when you realize you are gay, you just kind of if you're in the in-group there, which you are most of the time, or then you're like, oh, how could I ever come out? Because these people obviously hate gay people or something, or he's kind of on the out-group, and man doesn't even know. Again, some kids just have that. Some kids are called out as gay before they know they're gay because they just are a little more, just anything, a little extra, and anything, like you said, gets keyed in on to that regard. And so it's pretty brutal, and it's just a sad moment because, why, when you ask yourself, why would a child ask this question? Again, it's because it's been thrown at him. It's been used as a bludgeon, as a word, and so it takes Teresa and Juan aback, as it would. I think if any child asked us that, especially in the sullen, way that he asked it, it wasn't like a happy, cheerful.
Well, he's just utterly vulnerable, and it's just kind of. It would be a gamble to bring this up. I mean, they've demonstrated that there are people who are, they're people that can be trusted, right? But just to, in front of people, wrestle with the awareness of it, it's just utter vulnerability, and in the face of that, you have Juan and Teresa trying to find the not wrong thing to say, right? To try to find the right thing, but just not the wrong thing to say. And they answered that it's a word meant to hurt people. It's
a word used to make gay people feel bad.
What
I've got here. And to that, again, head-hanging champion Sharon hangs his head, and then he looks up again and he says, am I a faggot? And Juan kind of jumps in quickly to say, no, you can be gay, but you ain't going to let nobody call you a faggot.
This is where we get the tension of the word, just it meaning a homosexual, but also a weak person. It's a complicated word, and in that complication, that tension is the essence of the film, right? It's the conflict of gay male sexuality and black male masculinity, and can they exist in the same word, right? Because faggot would suggest that they can't, and so here we have Sharon trying to battle with this, right? We're like, is this the world as it's presented?
It's an othering word, and if he does ultimately end up different, it's something that really harshly brands him and just is a hurtful thing to say. Yeah. And there's really not much comedy in this movie, but whenever he answers, or Juan says, you can be gay, but you don't got to let nobody call you that. And then he kind of thinks for a second and then goes on to say, until Teresa Chanel Monáe kind of shakes her head, is like, no, we don't need to go into extra detail about why somebody may want to be called that and sort of a way, or why let's just leave it at that. And he's like 10, and so just a little, she just had a great little, no, not a.
Yeah, it's like, no, okay, you can stop. You said the right thing. Like, don't
you
say,
did great.
Don't say the wrong
just
thing.
Stop talking. Don't say more about this.
Don't say the wrong thing. Yeah, exactly. And just some appreciation for all the well-meaning heterosexual people who have this any vulnerable child, but a young gay boy asking these questions. Just okay, yeah, no, I can sympathize in with the dilemma, and just how do you not say the wrong thing? Just within that milieu, notable for no there was nothing religious that came up, and just trying to think about what could have been in the film, and like at this moment, it really struck me just how none of it unfolded according to religion, or how none of it was set in. It just wasn't a factor. It just wasn't in the scene, which to me
is
was
interesting
notable.
in a juxtaposition the quote good, kind, or religious people or whatnot are often the harshest to gay people, but the crack dealer and his girlfriend are the ones that have no judgment and really just kind of let him know that this is used to hurt people. You don't have to let people call you that. You're not one of those. It is an interesting thought in that regard, because when you talk about the grayness of it, or that Juan is a drug dealer and a bad person or whatever, he is a very kind and understanding man in many situations, and especially in this one. And then Sharon further goes on to say, to ask how he would know. She asks him, if I know, and then he says, how would I know? To which Juan responds, you just do, I think. And again, when you talk about straight people and our allies or whoever really responding positively in these situations, or when their child might come up and talk to them, they don't know. That's why they say I think in that sense, and it's just it's a great thing to do. Just there's no judgment there. It's just letting them know. And he goes on to further say, you ain't gonna know right now, not yet, because he's a preteen child. This is not. This is really more of an insult as opposed to an identity or even something tied to a sexuality. It's just meant to hurt. You don't have to know. You're 10, and it's hard again when people try to foist something upon you, especially negative, that young, that he now has to carry with him and perhaps think of himself as, or have that rattle around in his brain. So it's a very sweet scene, despite the underlying sort of abusive context it arose in. Again, because the fact that he would have been called this is the only reason it really would have come up. Especially as Sharon may not know much at all about his sexuality yet. We don't get any vibe of that. This is just a preteen boy. And so they're careful not to over-sexualize things or overburden him, which is nice. They just answer his questions, and they go on about that. But the scene doesn't really have a happy ending because
we got one more question.
Questions keep coming up, and the last one is Sharon asks if Juan is selling his mom, or he asks if Juan sells drugs, and Juan pauses for a moment because he can't really defend himself. It's his life, and he says and the next question, the final one is, and my mama, she do drugs too, right? It's also a and then the last one is. He gets up and he leaves. He does. That is the last one because he gets up and leaves. It just keys in on Juan Mahershala Ali's face. The camera stays there as Chiron gets up. We hear the door slam essentially, but Mahershala Ali's almost shaking. He's kind of like there's not like tears. It seems like a bit of a. Cry or shame and guilt, something perhaps.
He's really confronted with the cost of what he does, right? This young boy that he had befriended and had clearly grown to love as a son, just quietly gets up, walks out the door, and just rejects him on the spot when he puts it together that this man is destroying his mother. And it's powerful. This proxy father figure is allowing this boy to grow, but he has grown enough to realize that this person, this is fundamentally wrong. He declares that he hates his mother, and yet when he puts it together, he rejects Juan completely, and it's brutal to Juan, and we see it on him. He's starting to tear up. It's clearly a crushing moment to just be judged, just firmly and fairly judged. Just with the innocence of this boy.
It's a tough scene because, again, we've seen the positives that have come from that relationship, but we also know about the negative that is, again, sort of underpinning that and how he is impacting him negatively. Perhaps not directly. He's giving him money. He's being nice. He's taking him to do stuff. But he's also slowly destroying his life by continuing to serve his mother.
And also, there's just another, the other dynamic is that he realizes that he cannot allow a man into his life, right? His mother is allowing all these men into her life, and it's destroying her. She is opening herself up to what men can do to you, right? Like he was chased by bullies, and so we get a sense like he's learning what males can do to you, and he's seeing what it happens to his mother when she allows that to happen. And in that moment of realizing what he is doing to his mother, he also, we can conclude, comes to the decision that he has to shut himself off from the affections of men, or of what they would bring into his life. And so it's a tough scene just for that reason too, simultaneously. It's
very true. And this film is not shy about just jumping to the next thing. That's childhood gone. We now have a high school actor for Sharon in the next scene.
Yeah, we get a dreamy scene of a blue light flashing, and then we next see Sharon aged and now a teenager. I guess that he was maybe like 15 or 16
I'd
or
say
so.
Around there, yeah. He seems high schoolish. He doesn't look middle school. He's it
looks early, like maybe like he's a high school sophomore or something. Like this is sophomore year.
Taller, firmly post-puberty, all sorts of stuff. But we immediately see him getting bullied again as a classmate. Calls him little, talks about how he needs to change his tampon before that classmate gets kicked out of class by the teacher, sort of just being like, come on, what are you even doing that for? But he kind of lightly admonished him, but the kid keeps going, so it illustrates that teachers want to do their best, often in reality, as happens, but they just can't keep up with everything, or every insult, or every social dynamic, or they have a class full of 25 to 30 students at times, and so you just do your best, and you're like, get out of here. But it didn't protect him. He wasn't protected by the male teacher or anything in this, in many senses. And we
can probably safely conclude that this is not the first time this has happened.
No,
probably not even in this class, probably not this week.
Because that kid was very confident about just doing it in front of everybody, like performatively bullying him and right in front of a teacher. And so it's just not, this is not hidden. This was not something whatnot. And ultimately he's mad at Sharon because he got in trouble for bullying Sharon. I'm going to see you later. And that's not fair. Like, how would that be fair in this instance of, that same classmate, says he'll be waiting for him after school, presumably to beat his ass, as mentioned. And the next thing we see is Sharon sort of upstairs in sort of a hallway thing, eyeing up that guy and his friends downstairs, who are waiting to beat his ass, as it is. And
lo and behold, Kevin arrives, apparently having cut detention.
I think he was done with it.
I
think, he completed his crime on time. But yes, Kevin comes up and is like, what are you doing at school this late? Shouldn't you have gone home? And, Kevin doesn't live in this exact same world. He is not bullied in the same way. We see at times Kevin is friendly or can fit in with these groups. And so he just doesn't see completely.
He seems to blend in more, to fit in more, is just more easeful in his own. He's more comfortable in his own skin. He kind of has a certain swagger to him, like the last time we saw Kevin, he was a little boy too, and now he's kind of a swaggering, obnoxious teenager. Very stark contrast to Sharon, who's still very clammed up, has the weight of the world on him still, and it shows that. And this is right before the chapter break, right? We see all this.
Right, we don't get the title card yet.
And then we get the title card that says Chapter 2, Sharon. But this is right before it. It's in the chapter where he's still little.
Yep, he was called little in
it's in the little chapter.
Scene,
And it's also, the scene shows that he has grown up, but his life really hasn't changed. It's still the same bullies bullying him the same way, and he has a friend, Kevin, who's blending in and fitting in much better than he is, and is just more easeful in his life.
Which we should mention, the reason why Kevin was in detention was he was caught fucking a girl in a stairwell.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely say whenever straight kids are growing up, they have the opportunity to confidently and openly explore romantic relationships in a way that does give them confidence. And I mean, you get to have your fun, you get to be appreciated by other people, and, you know, be intimate with them. Whereas as a gay kid, you don't have intimacy. You don't get to do that because, and especially, again, this is an all-black school. We've talked about the intersections of masculinity. And I mean, I have a whole big thing on this later that, again, I will speak about with a grain of salt. Tommy and I are white. We don't say these things to condescend to a culture. We don't say these things to say that we know what is right or such, but it is just, we have friends, we have exposure to this stuff. It's just, there is intersectionality, especially among the Black and Latino community, of things like hypermasculinity and religion, which, again, we've talked about. Religion is pretty hateful, and so when these things collide, or there are underpinnings of all this, and then peer pressure, and you just don't get to be authentic or out, and if you do, or if you're targeted like Sharon and sort of known, then you get beat up, or you get targeted in these ways.
Well,
So
it's like his home life. He just never has a place. Just never has a place. Even in his own body, it's not like a home. It's not a safe space for him, right? His home life is not a safe space. His sexuality is clearly not a safe space. His body is always being physically attacked. It's not a safe space. And I think that's a narrative that a lot of gay men my age and older, you know, our ages and older, for sure, and probably younger. I would hope this would just stop being a narrative. It probably isn't, but it's just like you said. You can explore all these levels and layers and contours of sexuality at an early age, and it's innocent, and it happens naturally and without the world trying to destroy it. And that weight, you put that kind of weight on anything, in the shape of the thing it's on, it's going to start changing, and and it'll probably start breaking too at some point, and that's, you know, man, that's just the weight on Sharon. It's just, he looks like he's got that hangdog, his head hanging low look, and it's just, well, that's the weight. That's the weight. And
I think this is the first scene that Kevin calls him Black too. Just as the nickname there. He's just not like, you're Black. No, that is a nickname that Kevin assigns to this. And so I believe this is the first time we hear that. Yeah. But you're right. The title card is immediately following this. We don't see Sharon leaving school. We just it cuts to our second title card, to Sharon. And what we see after that is Sharon coming home and being told by his mom that he can't be there tonight. She's got company coming. And again, we kind of infer this to be prostitution at this point, especially because we see her needing money. We see things disappear. We see her on drugs, and we see her a bit more strung out each time as this goes on. So that is the implication here.
It's never explicitly stated, but it's grim adult stuff displacing him from whatever's left of his home.
There's something at the sort of end of this act where it's at least inferred that she has sex for money, but in a devastating your mom joke that we'll get to. But really not a joke, frankly, I guess, of a devastating your mom observation, which are the worst kind of your mom jokes in reality. But she sells him to be elsewhere. And so we see him at a dinner table where Teresa comes in and jokes water for her and a little gin for Sharon, and then she says she knows Juan used to give him some gin. We get our first past tense.
Yeah, we get these hints that Juan is no longer, that we don't understand why he's not there, but we start picking up that he's dead. And again, it's not ever really stated, but the implication seems like he was killed in the line of duty, kind of as a drug dealer. The film conveys a lot by implication, and by what one would glean from the situation, and this is definitely one of those. But we know Juan is not with us anymore.
And this is also, again, I said I'd say this. This is the first time we hear Mahershala Ali's character's name said aloud. We did not have Juan in the entire first act.
Ooh, see, yeah. I'm learning from you to really start noticing when names are first said, because it's usually pretty meaningful, and it's meaningful that someone is named only after they're dead. That's powerful, right? It speaks to the tension of being called what you want to be called, of being seen in the right light, and yeah, being named only after you're dead.
Which is also just interesting in a storytelling context, because when you say, like, even inferring Juan might be dead, the viewer's left to wonder at least a little bit, who the fuck is Juan? But I mean, there's only so many characters, and we can basically infer, again, it's Teresa and, like, a relationship they shared, and one of the only one we saw. So it's not, like, an unsolvable riddle, mind you, but it is brought up, and it is an interesting thing, just because this is the first time he's said, and he's gone at this point. Why would we need his name, essentially, if you're really just from a storytelling perspective, aside from referencing. So,
but this house has become a safe harbor. It's about as close as a home as he has, and Teresa is about as close as a mother figure as he will get. For sure.
Which is very true, but I mean, it's just tough again to see the one father figure he did have is now gone. It happened so suddenly. We don't really get, again, nobody's held our hand to this. Nobody was like, this is how it happened. This is how he died. It's very sudden for us as well. Just like it was probably for the characters.
Well, so, we see Sharon grow up quite a bit in a transition, and life clearly kept on happening, and one of those things was that Juan died. Again, we can infer that he was perhaps just shot and killed on the street. But yeah.
So Teresa gets on to him about hanging his head in her house because he's, again, awesome at that. And he ends up staying the night again, and he thanks her, and she says anytime he's welcome, and it's just a cute scene here. As a note, the director actually talked about how this is the scene where they were just going to say it. They were going to say Juan is dead, and they were going to discuss it, but he ultimately left it out because he kind of wanted to have it sort of peeled back, or sort of just be slowly sort of revealed, or he just didn't want to give that information away that, again, is just so on the nose necessarily, which many directors would balk at, but I don't know, it's interesting effect.
That makes sense to me. The idea that Sharon would just get verbose about something would not make sense to me.
That's a great point.
So
he stays the night. We see Sharon sleeping as we hear waves in the background, and he appears to wake up and wander outside, where he sees Kevin from behind fucking this girl. And Kevin turns around and is like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And just kind of an odd thing. Then Sharon wakes up, but specifically, it is a dream, and
has an erotic dream about Kevin fucking a girl. So it's not like a dream about the two of them having sex, but it's an erotic dream concerning his friend. One of those kind of like prototypical moments of sexual imagining, right? His sexuality still emerging, still very, again, just very, very clammed up, and so it translates into him dreaming about the story that Kevin was telling him, earlier about being caught in the stairwell. Right.
Which could imply, I mean, he's just thinking about Kevin a lot, because if why would he show up otherwise?
He's maybe dreaming about Kevin because maybe just has a crush on his friend, or is perhaps dreaming about Kevin because, again, Kevin just seems so much more just comfortable in his own skin and comfortable in his own life, right? There's a lot to dream about there when you're an awkward gay boy who just cannot find a place anywhere.
Yeah, right? He's just confident and happy, having sex, all the things that, frankly, Sharon doesn't have in this case. So, but we next see his mom is out on sort of the lawn of the apartments when he gets home, and she's very manic in this scene.
This is another real grim scene. She's real strung out. She runs up to him and is almost coy and flirtatious. Her mannerisms, her demeanor is that of like a junkie woman, and not.
She's eerily cheery. Yeah,
and kind of coquettish and coy.
Frantic.
It's an
that's a good
odd mix of things, none of which are motherliness at all. It's all these other things about a woman that are in their shadow aspect with her, right? But it just, again, not motherly at all. But she's clearly strung out and is asking Sharon about where he was. Right, and is starting to slyly ask about Teresa.
Which, she asks about Teresa and says she hasn't seen her since the funeral. Our second hint there about Juan, that he may no longer be with us. And she says she locked herself out of the apartment, which is interesting because she didn't, and I don't know exactly what to take away from that.
Well, it's that she was evicted, and they changed the locks, and that's why she couldn't access her home, is because she didn't pay the rent, and so she got locked out. And so she's lying to her son and to get him to help her into what is not their apartment anymore as a matter of law. But she's super strung out. Whatever was still left of that home is now just gone as a matter of paperwork. They were evicted. That is not their home in a legal sense anymore. And she is tricking her own son into helping her reclaim her possessions. It's grim.
Because once she gets inside, she's kind of rifling around, and then she gets a little mean. Like the cheeriness goes away, and she's like, "I need money. Give me money."
Yeah, she's jonesing for another hit, and it's just she's in the throes of withdrawal. And
Sharon, rightfully asks, like, what do you need money for? And that's when she gets cagey and mean about it. She's like, don't you fucking worry about what I need this for. Teresa's your play mom, not your real blood, and repeating over and over to give her the money. And she knows Teresa gave him some money, and as it turns out, she's right.
Yeah.
Because Teresa does care, and she knows this boy's situation, and so she gave him money to take care of himself, but the mom even wrings that out of him. She's wrung so much out of this boy, be a happy childhood, self-confidence, money now, just anything she can get out of him. It's not motherly. It's exploitative.
Yeah, we're about to see a really fascinating contrast, and it starts with this scene. It starts with her taking something out of him, because with the next scene, I believe it's him and Kevin on the beach.
Let's see. Sharon goes to school. After school, he's approached by Tarell, the classmate that's been an asshole to him.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They clock that he's going to Teresa's house instead of his own house because when they're waiting for him, it might matter what direction he's going. And so they're like, this isn't the way to your house. This is Teresa's house. And this is when we get a devastating mom observation, among other things, where we learn 2 bits of information here, too. Also, that Juan is indeed dead. Then we hear his mother's name dropped for the first time because the only time we've heard her name is right now is Paula. They ask if Teresa blows Sharon, ask if she does it for free, and then talks about how Paula is getting cheaper and gives blowjobs, and you can just throw a rock at her these days, a little crack rock, and she'll blow you. And that's when Sharon gets kind of mad and grabs Terrell here.
He is constantly beaten down, but when the insults start being about first his mother and then Teresa, it kind of snaps him out of his fugue state, right? He's anyone who's been bullied, and there's a lot of gay men now can speak to this. When they were you develop kind of a callous skin about it. You kind of develop a fugue state. Just that you can enter and just kind of ride out whatever bullying you're dealing with, and then it's a terrible coping mechanism. But he's just kind of in a sleepwalking state, just bullying again, and it's like this is my life. It's until they start attacking maybe the few things that give him any kind of identity whatsoever, right? that he actually holds as being precious. And that's when he he kind of has some fire in him, right? He starts getting a bit more assertive,
which I mean doesn't end well because there are two guys there, and he grabs one and the other throws him off immediately, and so it's like anytime he even tries to stand up for himself, it often doesn't go well, and he's being told by masculine men, often strong men, to stand up for himself, and then when he tries, it doesn't often go his way. He gets thrown back. He knows he would lose this fight, and when he gets shoved off, he gets another fun bit of homophobia thrown at him because the guy says, in a quote, "I ain't with that gay shit, but I'll give you more than that ass can handle and have you running back to your crackhead mama." And so he both just puts down his homosexuality and again goes back for the mom and really just hitting him pretty much where it is, where he lives there.
And it's just, everything about him is just out there in the open. Like, just the whole neighborhood knows about his mother, about his relationship with Juan, but still Teresa. And the implication being that they see something about his sexuality too, right? Just when you put together this list of things that are known about him because he lives in a glass house, as it were. He's so clammed up, and yet everyone seems to know everything about him. It's just this horrible tension, and that he struggles in the face of to like come to some kind of identity about himself, and so.
The character Tarell interests me in that he represents performative masculinity to me. We see him in the classroom do it for an audience, putting Sharon down. We see him here doing it for his friend, talking about how he gets blowjobs, how cool he is, how he's going to beat this guy's ass and stuff, and how that devastating insult. Look at that sick insult I laid down, bro. Like, it's very that. And I mean, again, this happens in all communities, mind you, but it can be one of these layers or one of these things tacked on as a black male needing to just to prove yourself. There is a lot of a proving ground situation in this, or needing, again, comparative masculinity. We're comparing dicks both literally and metaphorically in this movie. It's that.
But he's the representation of toxic masculinity.
Yes.
Of everything that's violent and corrosive and nasty and terrible about masculinity, especially young male masculinity, for sure. And as I mentioned, we have this like series of just really fascinating contrasts. And now think about it, it's actually across 3 scenes. We have this first scene where we have his mother, Sharon's mother, taking something out of him, and then we have this next scene of these bullies eliciting something from him. They're drawing something out of him. We see Sharon actually be more assertive than any other point in the film, right? Like when the bullies leave, he kind of fronts a bit, like tough guy fronts, like, "Oh man, I should have done that." Like, crap, like that would have been great. It's after the fact, but he still does it. He still does it, right? There's still that fire. Still, but we go from something being taken out of him to something being drawn out of him that's kind of ferocious and terrible, and then I believe the next scene is him on the beach.
It's they get the train station. Honestly, the train scene is again very A24. It's lights and flashing and colors, and it's shot interestingly, and this is where I sort of wrote down in my notes for thought. I was like, where even are we? Like, because they don't call out the city name or the setting at any point either. But whenever he's walking down the beach boulevard and with Miami. Palm trees lining it, that's what I guess was Miami. And I was right. I looked it up later. And they're on the beach. They talk about Cuba a lot. And I think I even have been on that boulevard. But that's where we are. So we're in Miami. He's taking a train and he is at the beach. And so it's not immediately clear where he's going. It's a date we've seen him in walking distance of his house and Teresa's house, so we're left to think, okay, where are you going? But we find out it is to one of his safe spaces or places he likes to be now, perhaps. Maybe it wasn't always, but after Juan, it is the beach. He's there, and the waves in the ocean are a big motif and a thing that repeats a lot. You'll hear it in the background. It's
the water is I read it as just being his inner turbulence. It's just always kind of moving, and it's always kind of wavy, and it's just always kind of there. And in this scene, he's on the beach, but he's not in the water. And like you mentioned, last time he's in the water was with Juan, and it's kind of sad in a way. Like he approaches the water, but he's just. Yeah, but again, the water is it's cleansing. It has these curative and nurturing symbolic properties, and so he approaches it as a safe space. Yeah, like what you mentioned.
So I don't know why or how. Like, I don't know if Sharon knows this is where Kevin does anything, but Kevin shows up again. He took a long train to get here, and it's like the beaches are big, but Kevin, plot magic, shows up, and this is where Kevin smokes apparently, and so they kind of get to talk, and it's just a nice scene between the two of them here. But we hear that Chiron is assumed not to smoke, which it would make sense. Given his upbringing, not wanting to fall in the same pitfalls his mother has. But, I mean, in the same scene, we quickly see him smoke because he mentions that his mother just leaves all sorts of shit lying around, including drugs. And so that also makes sense in the context of Sharon's life. So Kevin uses, again, the nickname Black for Sharon, which he previously used in the post-detention scene. And Sharon asks, hey, why do you call me that? And he doesn't get much of an answer. Kevin kind of just says, I just have a nickname for you, and really just goes past it, but he lights up a blunt and passes to Sharon. So he kind of is putting parts of himself or his own identity or his own thoughts onto Sharon here, like, have this name, do these drugs or whatever. And so it's another...
Or Kevin sees him in a different light, right? He doesn't see him as blue. That's one way that light could affect how he could be seen, as we experienced earlier in the film. Kevin is calling him Black, and it suggests that Kevin sees him, or just sees him in a special light. Just sees him.
Right? And he doesn't use it. There's this in a nickname that has any sort of tinge of negativity to it, mind you. It's the only person we ever see call him that, and so I mean, it is just a thing for him. And so I mean, Sharon.
To me, it felt like it indicated that Kevin is the one person that sees him as a black male. That even if he is gay, Kevin sees him as as he sees his black masculinity, right? And this nickname, it's a nickname, I guess, but it's also, I don't know, it's not a hostile nickname, right? It's not like faggot being yelled at him, right? But Kevin doesn't really give a clear answer as to why. He's very kind of coy about it. Like when confronted, he's like, "Well, it's the nickname that someone with a blunt here to smoke with you gives you." So he just kind of then doesn't. It to me, it struck me that Kevin kind of sees it as an endearing nickname, but then when questioned on it, doesn't want to, admit that, but yeah, like why is Kevin at this exact same beach? And it's Kevin and Sharon just are always ending up in the same place. They're just always ending up in the same place, and they seem like they're very different people, and they are very different people, but they just, perhaps just they have some similar sexual yearnings, even if they just have very different abilities to be comfortable in the world. They're still always in the same place, even now, oddly enough, when you would think that Sharon would be completely by himself. Here's Kevin.
It's very true.
In the same place.
So Kevin starts to sort of opine about ocean breezes, how nice it is, how it just kind of slows things down, or people just stop and appreciate it, and sort of just gets into some just talk that's a little deeper, perhaps, to which Sharon, who we know is awful deep in his little own well of inside himself that he plumbs a lot of the time to have to ask these hard questions, which is just a thing that happens in the LGBT community. You don't have to question a lot if you're growing up straight or assumed to be, quote, normal, but Sharon does. And so he, again, and sort of insight into both the fact that his life is sad and the bullying set upon him, When Kevin says the ocean breezes feel so good it makes him want to cry, Sharon asks him if he cries then. And in another direct question that seems to just knife straight through the pretense of things that are unsaid, he just asks that, do you cry? And it takes Kevin a little aback. Kevin, we see, or at least I saw, a tiny, tiny little mask slip, perhaps where he thinks about being vulnerable, but instead he responds that of course he doesn't cry. It makes him want to cry. Because of course men don't cry. This is the masculinity thing where just for a moment he could have related to Sharon, but he ultimately still chooses to go with his layers, his protection of masculinity.
Gotta keep fronting, just that kind of panicky need to correct oneself in the face of something that might challenge that facade. It's the tragedy of masculinity, right, that we see play out in this like micro way with these young teenage boys.
And he deflects it too. That's another thing that can be done to sort of not be vulnerable. Kevin immediately turns it back and asks what Sharon cries about. And unlike Kevin's flippant or deflection response, Sharon responds that he cries so much sometimes he feels like he's just going to turn into drops. And also says that he wants to do a lot of things that don't make sense. Which, this is a child finding his way. He can't articulate the words all the time of like what he wants to say. He can't articulate his sexuality well, and any time he's even tried, he's been bullied for it, or really just hasn't found anybody to understand quite yet. So it is important that Kevin does. He responds nicely. Kevin asks like what? Whenever he says like I want to do things that don't make sense, and he says, Sharon doesn't immediately respond after he says like what, but Kevin puts his arm around him and sort of grabs him, not aggressively, but like has his arm sort of around his neck. And they share a moment of sort of looking at each other and just sort of feeling the situation out, sort of reading what's going on. And there was a sad bit to me of this where we get the vibe as viewers, they're about to kiss perhaps, but Sharon sort of makes the first move and starts to move in for the kiss, but he stops himself. He doesn't want to open himself up for more pain or vulnerability. We know what he wants. He does want this. We saw him move for it. But it takes Kevin, the more confident one, the more assured, the more, I don't know, again, not just outright bullied for all of this. Or
he's just so much more comfortable in his own skin and in the world, just he is just more freely sexual, just is a more freely sexual being. Everything about Sharon is so pent up, just everything. And like you pointed out, he naturally moves in closer for the kiss and then catches himself, just like, oh crap, did I just do that? I didn't even realize what I was doing, because he didn't. It's just natural. It was a natural reaction. Of course he wanted to move in closer to the kiss, but that's the tension between being a emerging gay male and being currently a black male, having to confront the tension in this, right?
And he's navigating intimacy versus sexual attraction versus all of this, because I had friends that I was extremely good friends with that were straight men that I would have loved to kiss, but if I moved in for that, they almost certainly would have moved away. And so Sharon has no idea that this could end positively. That's why he catches himself, and he thinks perhaps he could even lose the one good friend he has in Kevin because he's offended him. Like, I didn't come out to certain friends or whatever that I really liked where I could have take that swing, but if I did, then I run the risk of them telling everybody or being rejected and just not having that friend anymore.
Like finding out that they were really just gay baiting you the whole time, and they're about to start yelling about it to the whole class. It's a very, very palpable fear for sure, and Sharon has very few like good, decent people in his life. Very few. There's a lot at stake. There's
a lot at stake. There always is in that regard. And that's, again, if to any of our straight listeners or such, that's part of why we can't date. There's a whole bunch of reasons why if we expose ourselves even a little bit, it could go just absolutely out there, just worldwide. I know people that basically got catfish on Grindr and then were outed to their whole school, their high school. It happens. It's just people are cruel, and especially young boys can be cruel when gay is a butt of a joke or just bad thing or something that's more, they're not gay, and so like if they never run the risk of being gay, they can just bash it with abandon because they'd never be bashed themselves. And so that's what the logic of these boys are.
Oh yeah, and just being that age, anything that causes you to stand out, just can be seized upon by kids are little monsters. They're just vicious, especially in the early years of puberty. Like, just, oh my God. And so anything that just makes you different will be seized upon, but especially if it's being gay. Just, I would like to think that's maybe a little better now, but I don't know. It's definitely still, these are still treacherous waters. Hey everyone. So we're getting a little long-winded, I guess. I think we're getting more and more so with every episode, but we're going to go ahead and cut this episode into 2 parts. And so this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 coming up next.